$75,000, 4 cylinders, a CVT. On paper, this is a hostage situation. Then you drive it. And the annoying part is that it's good. Not exciting good, not worth the money good. Good in the very specific way that arguing about it feels childish. This 2.5-liter 4-cylinder would be unremarkable in a $30,000 crossover, but in this Lexus, it should be embarrassing, but it's not. The reason is it's not alone. The electric motors step in instantly anytime you need them, whether you're accelerating from a stop up to highway speeds on an on-ramp or exiting a corner, and the torque fill is there exactly when you want it. What you don't feel is 304 combined horsepower. What you do feel is 304 horsepower delivered at the right time in the right order. Make no mistake, the 450h Plus is designed to be plugged in, and the EPA numbers assume that. If your commute or your drive is longer than the EV range, the math changes. Owners usually figure that out around week 3 in silence while they're staring at the fuel consumption monitor like it personally betrayed them. Late winter in Canada is less than ideal plug-in hybrid weather. The battery's thermal management system is working overtime in these temperatures, there's no doubt about it. When it's gotten really cold during my test, and it has, the battery range is more of a suggestion than an actual commitment on the part of this Lexus. Torque delivery at low speed is so seamless that I find myself occasionally looking down being surprised at how fast I'm going. Intuitively, I know that's because the electric motors are contributing to that torque delivery. There is a sport mode here, and that biases the hybrid system more towards the 4-cylinder engine, sharpens everything up just a little bit. What it also does is make that 4-cylinder engine sound a little bit more present in this luxury SUV cabin. And yes, there is this sequential shift mode for the CVT, which simulates gears, and I suppose Lexus chose to put that in here to give drivers of this $75,000 luxury SUV something to do from time to time. It's a bit like switching on the fireplace channel on YouTube in your condo, and technically, yes, something is happening. Yes, there is some regenerative braking going on, but the transition from throttle to off-throttle deceleration is incredibly seamless. Subscribers get notified when new episodes drop on this channel. Non-subscribers hope the algorithm will show it to them eventually, and if you want to control when you see our videos on YouTube, well, that's what the subscribe button does. I'm legally required to tell you that this segment is sponsored by Go Clean. I'm ethically required to tell you that I use their waterless car wash. Here's the reality of filming cars. They don't have to be perfectly clean, but they have to be clean enough to survive a close-up. I call that video clean. For that job, this waterless car wash is ideal. A few sprays, quick wipe, and the car goes from someone drove it here to camera ready in minutes. I'm not going to oversell it. I use it, I like it, and it's in my kit now. That's video clean. Use code MAX15 for 15% off. This 450h Plus is meaningfully heavier than the standard RX, which should worsen every dynamic compromise committed by an SUV to begin with. In practice, the plug-in hybrid battery is mounted low in the floor, lowering the center of gravity, and the extra mass gives the suspension something to work against. Larger road imperfections, mid-corner bumps are absorbed without drama, and those are things that would upset a lighter SUV. What the weight doesn't fix is the front end. When you push through a corner, build speed gradually. Eventually, this RX wants to push, but the good thing is when you lift off the throttle, the nose tucks in nicely, and it's all very composed. It's planted and it's honest about its limits. That's the RX 450h Plus in a corner. Two things are happening with the steering, and it's worth separating them. The weighting's better than expected, and there's real effort off center, but when you got this pointed dead ahead, this thing tracks straight as an arrow. That part's the pleasant surprise. Feedback is another matter. Whatever information is there between the tires and the road surface stays there. The chassis, however, communicates cleanly. You feel weight transfer, you feel body roll, you feel the mass, and the wheel in your hands communicates very little. In winter conditions like this on cold, damp pavement, you're relying on that feedback from the chassis. The good thing is this 450h Plus handles better than I thought it would, even with the additional mass. Compliance is excellent, body and wheel control is excellent, and the road conditions in the Toronto area in March are terrible. And the best thing is, this is not chasing any of those road imperfections. It does exactly what I want it to do and what I expect from it. And overall, the ride is more settled than soft, and there's a big difference between those two, and I don't think many buyers actually ask that question, but they're going to be pleasantly surprised when they feel their RX tracking through a corner and doing everything right. Braking is excellent. The pedal's a little softer than I would like. That initial bite just doesn't happen immediately, but once you get into that pedal, braking is strong. And don't misunderstand, it's not vague, but it's not sharp either. And once you lift off the throttle, it's the regen that starts the early work. When you get onto that brake pedal and the brakes do their work, that transition is seamless, it's progressive. And once your right foot has mapped it, braking's strong, it's consistent and predictable. It's exactly what you want out of a brake pedal. Under hard braking, this stops confidently and tracks perfectly straight. And I think this might have to do with this being the plug-in hybrid, and its additional weight just makes it more stable and more planted under hard braking. And I don't think that this is the first time physics has decided to be ironic. In the corners, this is the kind of SUV that does not like to be provoked. It'll comply, it'll stay composed, and then it'll restore order like something that didn't want to be part of the conversation in the first place. Body roll's present, but it's strange here because it rolls a little bit and then it just stops. And I think it has to do with where that plug-in hybrid battery pack is placed in this chassis, because this thing corners a little flatter than I expected it to. Yes, there is all-wheel drive, and how it works here is that there's an electric motor at that rear axle, so torque delivery is instantaneous. And in some of these nasty winter conditions that I've driven this RX in, that torque is there even before I think about it. Lexus calls the system E4, and that name does not convey how good this system is. If you want to support the channel beyond just watching, well, the merch store is open, and your support there means more time for us to produce episodes like this, less time worrying about manufacturer blacklists. No pressure, just an option. The interior materials and finishing and the design are all on point here. The materials are honest, the stitching in the upholstery is consistent, the seats are exceptionally comfortable, and there's enough bolstering here to hold you in place if the corners get interesting. And for $75,000, you're not buying a powertrain and tolerating the interior. This interior holds up its end of the bargain. There is no F-Sport trim for this RX 450H Plus, at least in 2026. And the one thing I would really appreciate is the thicker, more driver-oriented steering wheel from the other F-Sport RXs. On the other hand, when I first got behind the wheel and started steering this RX, it was refreshing to find an old-school steering wheel that wasn't pretending to be torn out of a race car. This still encourages you to have your hands at 9 and 3. There is some wood trim, but where you place your hands, it's all leather, and of course it's heated, and in this cold winter, I've definitely appreciated it. Ergonomics are modern Lexus. Simple, straightforward, very approachable. You're never looking for any secondary controls. Everything is logically laid out, and especially if you're accustomed to Lexus, you'll totally get it. Of course, people love to complain about digital screens, but I really can't complain. The digital instrument cluster, as well as the infotainment system, are clear and bright in any kind of lighting conditions. And yes, people will complain that most of the climate controls are built into this infotainment system, and the important stuff like the temperature control is actually a dial, and that's built into the face of the infotainment screen. The seating position is exactly what luxury crossover buyers expect. Easy ingress and egress with a taller hip point. You sit high off the road, excellent visibility, excellent sight lines all around. This is an RX after all, and there's plenty of room in that second row. I can sit comfortably behind myself in this seating position, and the story goes rear seat headroom may be compromised because the rear seat's a little higher since the plug-in hybrid battery sits underneath that rear seat, but for me, I didn't have any issues. Under the hatch, tons of room. No issues taking this on a long road trip with your family. And in terms of cargo carrying capacity under that hatch, there's tons of room. Definitely enough room for 4 full-size golf bags, probably 3 or 4 full-size suitcases. So taking this on a long road trip with family or friends is a no-brainer. The like button tells YouTube to share this episode with more people like you interested in an episode like this. And if this video gave you more information than a brochure or a press release, well, that's the entire ask. Here's what owners are saying, and owners learn things over the long term that a week's worth of testing will never reveal. And the number one thing that owners are talking about has nothing to do with a PHEV battery. It's the small 12-volt auxiliary battery, the one that runs the locks, lights, and electronics. Owners who drive in EV mode for several consecutive days without burning fuel have documented the 12-volt draining to the point where the car won't respond. Dead key fob, dead touchpad door handles, and a rear hatch with no manual release. One owner's wife got locked inside, but we all know that the manual door release is extremely easy to find. Anyway, the DC to DC converter that should be maintaining that battery appears to need the combustion engine running to do its job properly. The workaround the owner community settled on? A smart battery tender under the hood on a Lexus in 2026. Yes, a trickle charger just like it's a seasonal sports car in storage. Some owners have complaints about the proactive driving assist, but it's not what you think. That system applies light braking in curves and in traffic before you've asked for it. Owners who leave it on report real-world fuel consumption around 25 miles per gallon. Owners who turn it off report 38 to 39. Same car, one setting. If mileage is your concern, disable it on delivery and leave it off. Here's one thing that isn't making headlines. Owners with 45,000 to over 60,000 miles are still on the original brake pads. The regenerative braking system handles most of the deceleration load, and the brake pads and rotors are largely along for the ride. So this is where we land. It's a luxury plug-in hybrid SUV with a couple of quirks and a safety feature that works against deficiency until you disable it, and brake pads that will likely outlast your interest in this car. If you own one of these or have some quality seat time behind the wheel of one of these, let me know in the comments what I got right and what I got wrong, because real-world ownership experiences are much more valuable than anything I can learn on a week-long press loan, and I always read those comments. The RX 450h Plus is a better car than Lexus designed it to be. The mass that should have compounded its compromises actually settled the chassis. The electrification that should have exposed the 4-cylinder instead covers for it with enough competence that any inadequacy becomes almost academic. The result is a vehicle with a spec sheet that argues against it and a driving experience that doesn't. This is for the buyer who does the commute, the school run, the highway cruise, and the occasional spirited stretch, and wants all of it to feel settled rather than exciting. It's not for the buyer who saw the RX 500h's performance numbers and decided the 450 was the sensible choice. That buyer will be correct, but still mildly disappointed in a way they struggle to explain. The buyer who understood the assignment, keeps it charged, drives it in the right conditions in the right way, will discover that this is the best RX for them. This isn't the quickest RX, and it's probably not the most engaging, but I think this is the most honest RX that Lexus sells. It uses mass to its advantage and proves that occasionally physics complies. That's the RX 450h Plus. Subscribe if you want to see more of these. Don't if you don't. Comments are open if you disagree. And if you want to support more of these, the merch store's open. See you on the next one.